Security, she settled into her first-class seat, 3A. Taking out her tablet, Amelia began reviewing her emails. Her focus was abruptly interrupted by the sharp, piercing voice of a flight attendant. "Excuse me, ma'am," said the woman, a blonde in her mid-40s with her hair tied back in a tight bun. Her expression radiated irritation. "Are you sure you're in the right seat?" Amelia lifted her gaze from the screen, meeting the attendant's eyes calmly. "This is 3A. That's correct," she replied, holding out her boarding pass. The flight attendant frowned. "First class is reserved for premium ticket holders. Perhaps you're mistaken. Economy is toward the back." Amelia held her composure, pausing before responding. "This is my assigned seat. You're welcome to verify it." The attendant turned abruptly and marched off toward the boarding gate. Amelia noticed the curious glances from nearby passengers directed at her. A couple of minutes later, the flight attendant returned, her expression tight as she delivered a strained apology. "Your ticket has been verified. Enjoy your flight," she muttered through clenched teeth before leaving with a visible hint of irritation. Amelia exhaled deeply, doing her best to remain calm. As the plane prepared for takeoff, she couldn't help but notice the flight attendant's deliberate neglect. Her drink was served last, and when dinner service began, she was skipped once again. "Excuse me, is dinner included in first class?" Amelia asked after the attendant bypassed her a second time. "We'll check what's left," came the curt reply before the attendant walked away. A white male passenger seated across from Amelia frowned as he observed the interaction. Reaching into his pocket, he pulled out his phone and began recording. Amelia, outwardly maintaining her composure, quietly noted to herself, "This conversation will not go unnoticed." After takeoff, Amelia tried to focus on her work, but the flight attendant's cold glances and deliberate neglect kept pulling her attention away. An hour into the flight, the tension escalated when the same attendant slammed a glass of water onto her tray table, spilling its contents. "Careful," Amelia said calmly, moving her tablet out of harm's way. The flight attendant raised an eyebrow. "Didn't I serve you already? You're not a queen to demand special treatment," she sneered. Several passengers, including the man across the aisle, resumed recording the scene on their phones. "Your behavior is unacceptable," Amelia said firmly. "I need your name and the contact information for your supervisor." The flight attendant smirked. "Oh, are you complaining? I've dealt with plenty like you. Go ahead, complain. It won't change a thing." Her words hung in the air, followed by an oppressive silence broken only by the whispers of nearby passengers. Amelia glanced at the man with the phone and gave him a subtle nod of acknowledgement. As the beverage service ended, Amelia pressed the call button for assistance. Within a minute, a young flight attendant approached her, his demeanor polite and professional. "How can I assist you?" he asked. "I need you to contact your senior flight attendant or the captain. This is urgent," Amelia replied. The young man looked slightly uneasy but nodded and quickly left to fetch the senior crew member. Moments later, a woman in a crisp uniform and a polished professional smile appeared. "Good afternoon. I understand you had some concerns?" she asked. "Concerns is an understatement," Amelia said, sitting up straighter. "Your colleague has exhibited unprofessional and prejudiced behavior. This is entirely unacceptable, especially for employees of a company I lead." The senior flight attendant froze. "I'm sorry. Did you say you lead?" Her face turned pale as the realization dawned. "Yes," Amelia said, her tone steady. "I'm Amelia Carter, CEO of your airline. I will require a full report on all actions that have taken place during this flight." The previously smug flight attendant, still lingering nearby with a dismissive expression, turned ghostly pale. Her confidence evaporated in an instant. I didn't know. I'm sorry," she stammered, taking a step back. Amelia raised a hand, signaling her to stop. "We'll address this later. For now, focus on providing proper service to the passengers." The senior flight attendant nodded hurriedly and promised to follow up on Amelia's concerns. The disgraced attendant, now visibly shaken, stepped away silently to resume her duties. Amelia leaned back in her seat, the calm exterior she maintained masking her inner determination. This was far from over. The plane landed in Los Angeles. Passengers began gathering their belongings, but Amelia remained seated, waiting for an opportunity to speak with the captain. The flight attendant, still pale, nervously glanced in her direction but didn't dare approach. When most of the passengers had disembarked, Amelia stood and walked toward the exit, stopping near the cockpit. The senior flight attendant, standing nearby, looked tense. "Ms. Carter, the captain is ready to see you now," she said. Amelia nodded and the cockpit door opened. The captain, a man in his 50s with graying temples and a composed expression, extended his hand. "Good afternoon, Ms. Carter. I've been informed about the situation," he began. "Please accept my sincerest apologies for this incident. We will address it immediately." Amelia shook his hand, her face remaining serious. "Thank you, Captain. I expect a full report on what transpired. I also request that HR leadership be involved. This situation cannot be overlooked." The captain nodded, clearly understanding the gravity of the matter. "We'll handle it at the highest level." As Amelia turned to leave, a man approached her. The same passenger who had been recording earlier. "Excuse me, ma'am," he said. "I saw everything, and I want to give you the video. It could be helpful." Amelia smiled faintly, her tone softening. "Thank you. That would indeed be helpful. Here's my business card. Please send the file to this address." The man handed her his phone, showing that he was already sending the recording. Amelia gave him a nod of appreciation before turning back to the captain and senior flight attendant. "I'll follow up in a few days. This incident should serve as an example of how we will not allow discrimination to tarnish the company's reputation," she said firmly. The offending flight attendant stood frozen nearby, barely holding back tears. She muttered, "I'm sorry, Miss Carter. I didn't know who you were." Amelia fixed her with a steady gaze. "That's exactly the point, miss. It's not about who I am. It's about how you treat people." With those words, she walked toward the exit, leaving the astonished and silent crew in her wake. A week had passed since the incident. The video recorded by the passenger had gone viral, garnering millions of views across social media platforms. Outrage poured in from around the world as people condemned the flight attendant's behavior and voiced their support for Amelia. But more importantly, the discussion had grown beyond a single event, sparking a broader conversation about systemic discrimination in the service industry. Amelia was in her office on the 30th floor of the airline's headquarters. On her desk lay a report from the HR department. After a thorough review, it was revealed that the flight attendant had a history of complaints for rudeness and discriminatory behavior, which had previously been ignored or downplayed. Calling a meeting with her executive team, Amelia announced a new initiative, the Tolerance and Inclusion Program. This initiative included mandatory training for all employees, strict protocols for handling complaints, and independent audits of staff behavior. "We cannot allow situations like this to erode passenger trust or damage our reputation," Amelia said during the meeting. "But above all, we must respect every individual, regardless of their appearance or status. That is the foundation of our work." Meanwhile, the flight attendant who had worked in first class was reassigned to a ground-based role. Her actions had led to a sharp decline in passenger trust, and she now fully understood the gravity of her misconduct. After the video went viral, she became a target of widespread criticism, not only online but also among her colleagues. The next day, Amelia addressed a press conference. Without naming specific individuals, she described the incident and emphasized the importance of treating all customers equally. "This case serves as a reminder to all of us. We must never judge someone by their appearance," she told the journalists. "But most importantly, we must learn